Hey, thank you all so much for joining another episode of Celeste The Therapist Podcast. My name is Celeste. I'm a therapist from Boston. If you've never tried out any of my episodes, what I do on this podcast is I talk about things that we go through and I kind of walk you in ways that you can deal with it. Originally, I started in 2018 where I was talking to people that were doing things to empower the lives of others. And over the years, the last couple years, I've changed it because I opened a wellness center in Stoughton, Massachusetts, and I didn't have the capacity to interview people, but eventually I want to get back to there. So right now you get these nice short episodes. Today we're talking about grounding techniques. So I've been away for a few weeks. I took some time off and I went to the country of Ghana, and I had such an amazing time being around people, learning the history of Ghana and the liberation, just all the ways that I think that trip was came at a really great time due to the nature of the work that I'm doing. It just helped me feel more motivated, just thinking about all the leaders before me that has done so much work to try to educate and liberate people from the shackles of like white supremacy and um, all of the things that are happening in this country in America. I've struggled with a lot, and it doesn't deter me from what I'm doing. It actually motivates me to do more, but also just thinking about all the people that have come before me and have done amazing work. It just really was very inspiring and encouraging. So at the Wellness Center, we have classes that take place every month. We've just added sound healing as a regular rotation. So if that's something that you're interested in, if you go to stwyt.com, you can find the links for the classes that are coming up and future classes, and you can sign up. So grounding techniques, what I decided to talk about this. During the trip, my children were um, going on a separate vacation, and there were some logistical things that needed to take place, and I wasn't even in the country. And the way my mind started spiraling about worst case scenarios really had my stomach tight. And one night I couldn't sleep. It was when I first got there. I couldn't sleep, and I was able to recognize what was going on. My mind was creating scenarios. The thing with humans is that we're the only species that can activate our amygdala with the way that we think about things. So, for instance, animals, the prey comes and then they can go back to baseline, and they don't create scenarios in their head about what could happen. Their system is at rest, right? For us, our mind has access to the experiences that's been in the past. It can create crazy scenarios the same way it created like crazy scenarios that caused me to feel so anxious. Our mind can also create amazing scenarios that can show us like our goals and how, like, and that's literally, I've talked about this before, but when it comes to the trajectory and the way that I operate, it's because I continue to visualize myself in a different space, right? I continue the goals that I have, I continue to picture it in my head. And so my mind is always able to look for the opportunities for me to get to that place. So I had this like kind of like struggle. My stomach was turning. I was anxious. I couldn't sleep. And I woke up early and I tried to do a body scan meditation. And that didn't work, right? And so I found a meditation. I typed it on YouTube, meditation for anxiety, and this nice 5-minute anxiety meditation came up. And part of it, we was affirming, I am here, I am okay, right? Like I know logically I'm okay, but emotionally, my mind thinking about all these crazy scenarios, I'm across the world and unable to get to them. That's one of the areas that with the way I struggle with anxiety when it comes to my children, where they're not in my presence, my mind can literally go into like all of these crazy scenarios. And so I was thinking like I have all of these tools that I use that helps me when I find myself struggling. And the effects that it has on me is rather quickly because, in general, I am not operating from an anxious standpoint. So it's easier for me to gravitate towards some of these practices and find immediate relief. I'm going to share these practices, but I also want you to know that sometimes when you've been in this like space for a long time struggling, that you may not be able to get that immediate relief. So I do, as I'm talking about these things, I want you to think about like, how can I add these as a regular practice into my life, kind of like medicine, thinking about it like that, because the things that I do when I find myself struggling are things that I already do on a regular basis. So it's easier for my system to acclimate to what I'm trying to show it, right? So one of the things I'm thinking about is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, right? And these are really good too if you find yourself like struggling in the moment and you need something really quick. So this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method is 5 things you can see. So you literally, let's say you're finding yourself struggling and you're not able to ground. You look for 5 things you can see, 4 things that you can touch, right? So you literally will go and, here's my water bottle, here's my table, here's my computer, right? Because what's happening is doing that is allowing your system to ground. 2 things that you can smell, right? I have some lotion on, I have this hand sanitizer here. If I squirt it, I'll smell that, right? It's bringing me into the present. And then 1 thing that you can taste, right? If you have a peppermint, those are great. Gum, even if it's water or a drink, like those 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, you're using your senses to bring you back into the present. And you may say, but what do you mean back into the present? I am in the present. Yeah, like you're physically here, but consciously we don't be here sometimes. And those are things that you can do to help you kind of get back into the moment, especially if you're finding yourself ungrounded, right? If you find yourself, like for instance, if you're driving somewhere on a bus system or train system and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm already there, that's your mind kind of like going into another space. And I do want to preface it, like, some people, a lot of people have had to survive by escaping mentally, right, as a child. And so even as an adult, you can find yourself doing that, finding yourself escaping. Sometimes that's the only thing you've had access to. And as an adult, when you have a lot of responsibilities and things, it just doesn't work, right? Escaping may have been a norm. You may not even realize that you've been doing it because it's what you do, but just be mindful of that. So that's one of the ways. Another way that you can access like getting grounded really quickly is literally by deep breathing. If you go on youtube.com, you can type in like breathing circle. There's a circle where it will go in and out like that, right? It's a breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. Like something as simple as creating this intentional time to breathe deeply, right? Because you may say, Celeste, I'm already breathing, but are you intentionally breathing? A lot of times when we're struggling, our breathing is really labored, right? And again, like your system is not designed to work on overtime. A lot of times our system is in overtime and we find ourselves struggling to breathe. You may not realize it, but like just how I did like that, like I can tell in those moments, it doesn't even have to be about me being anxious. It could be me rushing or feeling overwhelmed. And then I'll realize it and then I'll be like, all right, take a deep breath, right? Sometimes when people come on the screen with me when I'm working with people, because most of my sessions are virtual, and they'll come on and be like, yeah, I got all this going on. I was like, all right, hold on, let's just take a breath, right? And it's so amazing because it's like, wow, like I really needed that breath, right? Like I really needed that pause. Like so many times we're just in the hustle and bustle and we're not creating moments to pause. And it's not healthy for our system. Like we need to pause. Like if a car just ran all the time, eventually it shuts down. My computer system, if it's on too much, it gets too hot and it closes off, right? So really being mindful of like taking moments to breathe deeply. Another practice is like a body scan. And as I told you, when I was super overwhelmed and anxious, I did a body scan meditation where it kind of took me from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet. And that didn't help. I needed more words, you know. And so with the body scan, it's kind of like pay attention to your mouth. Are you clenching your teeth, right? Relax your fingers. Like a lot of times you don't realize like you're wound up tight. Some of us, like if you're watching me on YouTube, like your shoulders are high and you're like you're like this, right? Tensed up, and you don't even realize you're tensed up because you're always tensed up. And that being tensed up, guess what? It not just affects you physically, internally, it affects the way you're projecting on things and people, and the way you're looking at life. If you're always wound up, how do you find any like freedom or peace in life if your whole physical system is wound up? So that's number three. Another great activity is mindfully walking. So literally going outside, letting the sun hit your face, even like taking your shoes off and letting your feet hit the ground, right? Like literally like looking at what where you're walking. You may have noticed like look at the flowers there, right? Paying attention and mindfully walking. So that means don't get on your phone, like don't talk to anybody, right? Just be alone with you in your own space. The phones and the social media piece can be helpful with distracting, but we can't allow ourselves to be distracted all the time, right? We have to, like, society's not going to remind us, like, hey, did you do that grounding thing? Did you do X, Y, and Z? Society will not remind us of this. It's something that you really have to be intentional about. And the things that I talk about are free, like, it's intentional for me. This is an intentional thing that I do when I talk about ways to work through things. I talk about ways where it doesn't cost money because I really want people to feel empowered after they listen to these episodes so that they can feel like, you know what, I can start the process today. It doesn't have to be about next Monday or next year or the top of the month. It can literally be like I can start this process today. So mindfully walking is another great way to ground. And again, as I'm talking about these things, look at it as medicine. How can I incorporate this into my life on a regular basis? Grounding objects, right? Sometimes people, I'm just looking at my desk to see what I have. People may have something that they can use to help them stay grounded. So it could be textured, right? This is, I don't even know what this is. I think this is a cap to my ink. It could be something that's textured where you can hold it. Sometimes people may have like a bracelet or something on them that has like different kind of grooves and nooks to them. And they touch it. Like if you're feeling nervous, you'll just kind of touch it. People I work with that like will pick their skin or their hair, pull their hair. I'll talk about these mechanisms that they can use a rubber band to grab and just like touch and pop to help you get back into the moment, right? The stress that we feel for so many different reasons will cause us to, we'll find ourselves escaping in different ways. And sometimes it looks like pulling your hair or picking your skin, right? Or your fingers, right? Like, there's so many things that you're doing that you don't realize you're doing when you're doing it. And you're like, oh my gosh, how did this bald spot get here? Or how did my fingers started bleeding, right? So my goal in you listening to this is to help you see like, okay, yeah, maybe I'm not as grounded as I could be, but these are some things that I can do to work on starting the process, right? Because when we talk about this stuff to our PCPs and doctors, a lot of times the first course of action is medicine, and medicine's great. It has its power and it's definitely a great tool, but it shouldn't be the first tool of action. Like, I want people to try the things that they can do. And if those aren't working, all right, let's talk about medicine. The next thing is journaling. Great tool, right? You see that 365. I have a journal that I created, a really cool journal. Let me just grab it really quick. So this journal is I created it back in 2018, before the podcast, so I think 2017. And I basically am asking you different questions and asking you how you're feeling. So, do you find yourself stressing over things? Yo, what are the odds of this? Y'all see me just open this book up? If you're watching me on YouTube, I just grabbed it. This is crazy. Because this is what we're talking about. This is so crazy that I just opened it up to this. But anyways, do you find yourself stressing over things that are not in your control? If you do not have control over it, learn how to let it go. And then day 130 says, imagine how intentional your life can be if you start thinking before you act. And so some of these are questions and some of them are statements. Like these two were statements. And day 143 is a question. Because we can pride ourselves on being strong, we fail to realize how our broken pieces in life have hindered us. We continue to grow physically, but mentally we are stuck. Do you find yourself being stuck? So, like these statements every day are designed to help you really think about some areas of your life that you may not have thought about. And so halfway, so it's 365 days, right? Halfway through the year or halfway through this book, it resets the question. And so the question you get on day one, you'll get on like day 160 something. And it'll be that same question, but then you can see how you've grown over the last 6 months, right? So that was the design of it. Like I always think about people that can't afford therapy, and even if you can't afford therapy, can't find a good therapist, and find yourself feeling stuck. I think about these things as I do this podcast, and the things that I've created. So that's an example of a journal. There are many journals out there, and again, there's also a notebook and a pen. Just grabbing that and checking in with yourself about how you're feeling, what went well today, like what do I need to do to prepare for tomorrow, and what am I grateful for, right? Those four questions, if you listened to this podcast before, those are questions that I ask my kids every night, because I want to help them get more into the moment. Thinking about gratitude is really hard to find yourself in a dark place constantly when you are bringing gratitude into your life. Having a nature connection is really helpful for grounding. Trying to get into nature. I have a hiking trail not far from my house that I can go to. Even if you don't have a hiking trail, if there's a garden, right? If you have plants in your house, outside, touching a tree, like water. If you're near any water, right? I have a little like pond that's not far from my house that even just driving by, it's just like I breathe different. It's crazy the energy that nature holds. Affirmations is another grounding technique. I told you at the top of the podcast how I was struggling and thinking of worst case scenarios. The body scan wasn't helpful, but then um, the um, the next thing I listened to around anxiety was more affirming that I was okay. And I love sharing the ways that I struggle, because I talk a lot about the way we can work through things and how to make things work and what I do in life to work on myself. But I also want you to know, regardless of how much work you do, like life is gonna life at times, and you're gonna have these experiences, and these are what you things you can do to help work through those experiences, right? The last grounding technique I want you to think about is just like physical movement. If you follow me on Instagram or my stories, I walk. I'll talk about like I don't feel like walking, but I'm walking. And a lot of the things that I do are so part of my routine that regardless of how I feel, I do it anyway. Payroll has to be made every other week. I'm making sure I'm doing that right. As a business owner now, there are just a lot of logistical things that are on my plate that don't necessarily always feel like doing, but I do it because I know I need to get paid. So financially and literally, like I think we tend to do that. But when it comes to our individual self and our individual growth, I don't think we do that enough. I don't think we actually work on doing things based off of what we need. We end up doing it how we feel, right? We know that we should be getting up early for work so we're not rushing in traffic. But what do? We snooze because it feels good to stay in bed. And then now we're rushing into work. And so we're literally starting our day on the wrong foot. because now our system is in this anxious state, right? If I sacrifice the extra sleep and got up early, even though it didn't feel good, then I'll find myself slowly rolling into work and not feeling the pressure of the anxiety from the morning, right? So a lot of times we will sacrifice and get that little bit of extra sleep, like get that little bit of extra something, but then it doesn't really help us throughout the day. Not taking that extra sleep doesn't feel good because I enjoy my bed and I enjoy sleeping in, but also what doesn't feel good is not getting the things that I need to get done, right? So I just want you to take away from today some things that you can think about implementing into your life, right? Some practices that you can think about trying that can help you get more aligned with where you say you want to be. When people tell me, like, oh, I'm trying to change that, or I'm trying to do this, I said, what does that realistically look like? Saying you're trying and actually putting something in place are two different things. I think mentally we want it to be different, so we're trying, right? But literally, are we doing anything different? So, really be mindful of the choices that you're choosing to make, really being mindful of the medicine that you're taking. Even if you're taking literal pills, that's totally fine. I still want you to think about adding these other medicines to your routine. And so you can see the power that you have, right? A lot of times we can't see the power that we have, but we haven't been taught how to access it. And being in Ghana and just learning about the ways that a lot of the practices were stripped from Black people. They had the things that they were doing, and they introduced church, right? And it's so crazy how the female slave dungeon was downstairs and there was a church upstairs, and the horrible things that they were doing to these people while they said, hey, you can't do none of your practices. Here's our church practice, and we're beating you as well, and we're doing all these horrible things to you. It really like made me think about things and take a pause. There's a lot of ways that, like, even if you're in therapy, that like pain is stuck in your body, right? I created this wellness center and these somatic classes because I recognize there's such a disconnect with the way that our society talks about wellness with psychiatry and therapy only, but not bring in the physical part. There's something powerful about coupling up this process of healing with some somatic work, and really like getting into some kind of system and routine. So I gave you a lot to think about. And so what I want you to take away from this is like, okay, what can I start implementing today, right? Can I get up and go, if you have time now, can I just go for a walk today? Not getting on my phone, just walking mindfully. If you haven't been walking, I'm asking you for 5 minutes. Just give yourself 5 minutes. Can I do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method, right? Pay attention, get myself grounded. Can I do the 2 minute breathing meditation, right? These little things that you may think is not a big deal, they are huge. They add up. You're making deposits into your life that starts to add up. Those little deposits start to feel differently. So I just want to challenge you to do that. So if anything I say resonates, understand you have the power to create change. But first, you got to have faith to believe in yourself. And when you have faith and when you start believing in yourself, I promise you, no one can ever take that away from you. So don't forget, follow me everywhere on social media at Celeste the Therapist, or you can follow my wellness page at STWYT, and that stands for Shifting the Way You Think. You can visit our website at stwyt.com to learn more about the Wellness Center and to sign up for a class. Until next time, beautiful people, I will talk to you later.